moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, I say a little prayer for you. While combing my hair now and wondering what dress to wear now, I say a little prayer for you. Forever, forever, you stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. I'll love you together, together. That's how it must be to live without you. It only means heartbreak for me. I run for the bus, dear, while riding I think of us, dear. I say a little prayer for you.
We've talked and touched on a little bit about you as artist, but obviously you are also curator and facilitator of art within your space, which is yours and Georgie, Pollard's Index. It's rather new, rather fresh, but it's certainly entrenched itself within the inner west and beyond. So let's talk a little bit about you as curator and facilitator and what that means in a contemporary modern society in Sydney.
Well, I mean, I think that, I think curation and, I guess, I mean, I suppose I call it arts advocacy, for lack of a better word, because I think it's not just about this very isolated act of the curator, which is also, a highly institutionalized term. And I do come to curation from an arts practice, so I see it as an extension of being an artist, and that extension is often about when an artist kind of looks, backs away from their own personal focus to a personal focus to kind of view, well, what's the context that I'm making art in? Why am I, it's not just about what I'm trying to say, but actually looking at, the world I'm saying it in. And these other activities that I have they're often about me trying to come to terms with, okay, yeah, I want to say this thing, but I also want to say it within a certain sphere of communication, within a certain language group, if you will. And so curating often helps me to kind of come to terms with that and to help me to investigate and look at, and I think that, it's true about contemporary art. It's it's definitely a living culture, but it's a very particular one. It's a very conscious one. It's one that you kind of always have to kind of dredge up and bring back into your conscious what's happening and kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. This is not something we've been doing for 400 years and we know it, like we know how to breathe. Where it's constantly changing, it's constantly altering the relationships between people making the art, people seeing the art, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's talk about some of those challenges that you do put out there in what is art and in general arts criticism. One of the things that, one of your strengths is that you are quite active in the role as art critic as well. So how important do you think it is to challenge what is art and standards in general?
Because I don't actually consider myself that active. I enjoy writing, but I actually don't write all that much. It's very difficult for me to do. Like it's a painful, difficult thing for me to do. It's rewarding when I actually do it. And there's a number of reasons for that. But one of the things that I've discovered about what I write, I don't write negative reviews. I won't do it. I just I will write about something that excites me or something that I think is really amazing. But I'm not going to sit there and bag out somebody because they're making an artwork that I didn't like or that I thought fell short. It's not my job to sit here and set a standard for people and judge them according to it. So for me, challenge that idea of critique. Of the challenge. I mean, I haven't come across the artwork that I just really thought needed that kind of a punch in the nose. I can't. I mean, most artists I know, they're even if you're making a little bit of money out of it, most of them are struggling. Most of them are paying their own money to do it, and if they didn't do it quite successfully, I'm not gonna fault them for that, you know? I mean, for me, honesty is important. If you're trying to say something, then just make sure it's honest. And it doesn't matter, at that point, for me, it doesn't matter whether whether you're saying it, you know, what level of quality you're saying it at. You know, just so long as that honesty is there, then you're entering the conversation.
Do you think it's a question more then of what is sellable art, from conceptual, contemporary forms of art? Do you think it's about the sales, and do you think that that's perhaps easier to be critical of art?
You know, I mean, I think the commercial side of art is a sideshow. It's the sideshow that's kind of taken over. You know, so the real art actually happens in this little corner of the big tent that's actually been owned by the sideshow. And it's irrelevant, you know. It's, for me, in my art making and the art that I look at, that's, you know, I mean, it's not irrelevant because it's also kind of what fuels and it funds and it, you know, and it determines and you know, as idealistic as I might be, you know, all of the artists I'm working alongside, you know, they have very different ideas and they, you know, engage with that world and its relationship to their world, because their world is not terribly commercial. You know, they engage with it as they do. You can't ignore it. It's you know, it is the reality principle, but for me, it's not all that. That's not all that important. I mean, if an artist gets paid for what they do, I think that's great. You know, that's freaking great. If they get commercial calories, well, I don't think that makes them a better artist, or that makes what they're doing valid, or, you know, blah blah blah. And frankly, I think that after you get elevated to a certain, you know, a certain level, you just get elevated out of my world, and you know, good luck to you. But I'm going to stay. I want to think that I'm going to stay down here where I live.
Stay indexed.
Yes, I'm going to be indexed to the world. Yes.
Now, thinking about bibliography, part of the process here with poet artist interviews is to get you to recite or read a poem. Now, you are a poet yourself. What have you decided to do?
I'm actually not. I don't call myself a poet. I'm an ex-poet. You know, this is
an ex-poet.
Yeah. I think I'm one of the few. You know, I don't. There are too many people that will call themselves that. But I was about 20 years. I wrote poems. I got published.
A poet, once a poet, always a poet.
You know, that's true. You know, Rilke actually, you know, he at one point in Letters to a Young Poet, he advises, God, I can't remember who the young poet was, because he had a name, but he advises him, he said, because, you know, the young poet had written a letter sort of expressing doubt, and Rilke said, well, you know, ask yourself if you have to do this, and if you don't have to do this, then you're not a poet. And so I guess I asked myself that question at one point, and, you know, I mean, I was writing 2 poems in a year, and so it's like, you know, and then I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a go. I'm going to go a year, you know, I'll stop writing and see if I can stop. I'm not a poet. And yeah, I stopped. I haven't written a poem since. So.
But I think you, just to add, I do find your work very poetic.
Yeah.
It's mostly narrated with ambient. It's a social message. A lot of what you do is sort of poetic quality. You do have a way with words. So what are you going to recite for us today?
Well, I'm going to recite a poem that I wrote when I was a young man in New York. I had read it's called The Poem Eaters, and it's basically about an editorial I read once from a poetry magazine that I'd been rejected from a number of times, as you do. And they basically were giving prescriptions on who you could not be in order to be a poet. And they kind of opened this editorial in terms of, you know, the story of them sitting down to a cafe meal to look at, you know, the last batch that come in. And you know, and they also describe the fact that they receive 50,000 poems a year. And I thought, wow, fuck, 50,000 poems, man, that's hard. You know, that's just, wow, these guys, they suffer. So I wrote them this little panegyric.
Can we give Alex Wisser a bit of applause before he reads his recite?
Okay, well, good. I'm glad I got the applause before, because I might not make it through this one. Alright. 50,000 paper boats on a cafe table. The editors have hung their coats and sit in chairs unstable. Tonight, they'll shove into their throats 50,000 paper boats and swallow if they're able. Oh, editors, good wretched hearts, who suffer housewife fantasies and erudite inanities and all the wisdom that the imbecile imparts. Endure their guide's painful taste, prepared in all the effort haste, and pride with which a child makes his farts. Oh, martyrs, fools, madmen, saints, what right you have to your complaints? You endure... Or you endure... Or you endure... What's that over? I got nervous. It just went out of my head. 50,000 paper boats on a cafe table. The editors have hung their coats and sit in chairs unstable. So now they'll shove into their throats 50,000 paper boats and swallow if they're able. Oh, editors, good wretched hearts, who suffer housewife fantasies and erudite inanities and all the wisdom that the imbecile imparts. Endure their diet's painful taste, prepared in all the effort, haste, and pride with which a child makes his farts. O martyrs, fools, madmen, saints, what right you have to your complaints? Your minds, your souls, your imagination endure a base poetic flagellation that even Dante would not curse the vilest of his universe to suffer through so mean a hell as one created in that verse. Dear editors, I quietly submit, and hope it does not choke you where you sit. This poem into the lists of paper ships. The waiter knows, the poet never tips. He leans above your table as if meaning to inquire, why don't you do as Lipo did and set the things on fire?
Wow, fantastic! Fantastic!
Absolutely a sentiment that many poets share. Alex Wisser, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Well done, well done. You brought it home. We like it.
No, look, it's a sentiment that rattles around. Fantastic.